Hello and welcome to this video of everything I read and watched in November. Last month I planned to read Oliver Twist as it was the next book by Charles Dickens in chronological order. I also wanted to read The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, as well as The Canterville Ghost, and then I used a jar to randomly select the last book, which turned out to persuade me to read Persuasion by Jane Austen. Last month, I managed to read everything, which was definitely helped by having some shorter books and audiobooks. The first book I finished was Oliver Twist, and I went into it knowing that it would be slightly different to the musical film I'm more familiar with, but with hope that it would be good, as I have been pleasantly surprised with Charles Dickens' writing. As with other books by him, I have enjoyed the sense of humour and the social criticism, and in this, Oliver does not actually have a huge presence in the story, but does connect to everything. I liked the portrayal of lower society, which I don't often read about in classics, and the struggles that they all have. There is kindness shown from characters who are higher in society, and also Nancy, who has a lot to lose in helping. I realised after finishing it how much I had enjoyed continuing with the story, and that I actually liked reading it as much as other favourites, and so I am giving it 5 stars. I don't think I'll have as much to say about the next 2 short classics I read, but I probably will have by the end. I like reading Jekyll and Hyde at this time of year for the atmosphere and due to the sci-fi vibes. It's an interesting exploration of the good and bad of humanity, especially in the fact that it is all experienced by one character. I would give this one 4 stars for enjoyment and its writing. After that, I read The Canterville Ghost by Wilde, which was so funny and didn't take itself too seriously. It follows an American family who move into an English house against warnings of it being haunted, but their reactions are so calm and they try to help the ghost to his dissatisfaction and end up making him afraid instead. I like that the family are constantly removing a bloodstain, which the ghost puts back each day, and that the family end up trying to predict how it will appear the next day. I think I will give it 4 stars, as I really enjoyed it, and it was hilarious, but there wasn't anything to make you connect to the characters, and the ending was a bit flat. I always remember liking it, but not always what happens. And then the final book was Persuasion, and I have found it to be one of my least favourite by Jane Austen in the past, as it always takes me a long time to get into, and it was the only one that I used to completely forget about what happened in it. I can now say, though, that I appreciate it a lot more, and I find it to have a different tone to the lighter romances that were earlier works, as this follows an older main character who had previously rejected a marriage proposal. It also has a side plot with a character that is not all they seem to be, who gains the trust of characters, which reminds me of Wickham from Pride and Prejudice. I would rate my enjoyment of Persuasion as 4 stars. And I would say that my favourite book of the month was Oliver Twist, but I enjoyed all of them. Well, that's my wrap up of everything I read, and I enjoyed the time I spent reading, as well as randomly picking from the jar, so I'll definitely do that again. I would also like to talk about all the things I watched last month. The selections from the jar were Butler, book of Circus, the Untamed, Spirited Away, Studio Ghibli film, and finally, The Daily Life of the Immortal King. The first pick was due to the jar trying to gain my favour by telling me to rewatch Butler, Book of Circus, which is part of one of my favourite anime series and the one I talk about the most. It's no surprise that I gave it 5 stars, and as always, I love the music in the anime, the characters, and the addition of the mystery surrounding the circus in this particular part of the series. I then started watching The Untamed on Netflix, which is a Chinese drama and an adaptation of Brown Master of Demonic Cultivation, which is by the same author as Heaven Official's Blessing, which by now we know that I like a lot. As it's got 50 episodes of over half an hour each, I didn't expect to finish it this month, and I didn't. So I will continue watching that this month and talk about it more when I finish it. But I am really enjoying it for the great characters and the plot. The next selection from the jar had been the Studio Ghibli film Spirited Away, which has become a favourite and has great characters as well as a whimsical bathhouse setting. It has great character development, but it is also filled with sweet moments. I love the art style and find it very relaxing, so I would rate it 5 stars. The last thing that I watched in November was the donghua, or Chinese animation, called The Daily Life of the Immortal King. It's set in a high school in a world with cultivation, with the main character who has immense powers and has therefore had his emotions and his powers restricted. It has a romance and a competition between other cultivation schools, but I like the character friendships and the sense of humour most, and think the theme song is very catchy. I would give this 4 stars. I think there is more than one season, but I only have the first season available to me on Netflix. I've now talked about everything that I read and watched in November, and I'm excited to see what the jar will give me with this December. Thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate it. Please consider liking this video, commenting and subscribing to this channel, which is very encouraging, and I'll be back soon with another video and more waving. I wish you all the best.